I'd like to introduce you to a car that's been causing quite a bit of confusion in the Electrifying office this week. Not because it's a confusing car, but because we've been testing more than one fully electric Audi, and we simply keep referring to them as e-tron. Now the problem with that is that there are now several Audis that have e-tron in their name, including one that is just called e-tron. Yeah, it's totally confusing, isn't it? Although perhaps it says more about us than it does Audi.
But before I tell you all about this particular e-tron, you know the script, please do subscribe to the channel and switch those notifications on so you know when our latest video has landed.
What our confusion goes to show is that Audi has massively ramped up its game when it comes to cars that have a plug. There are now enough Audis running on electricity to put us all into a muddle. And this one, the Q4 e-tron, well, it's actually pretty good. Sorry, did I just spoil the ending? I hate it when people do that. Interestingly, this is another one of those cars that shares the bits you can't see with other electric cars. It's actually the cousin of the VW ID.4 and the Skoda Enyaq, but just a bit more Audified. And when it comes to cars, being Audified is never a bad thing.
The outside is handsome, restrained and not likely to offend anyone, even in this optional Aurora Violet colour.
Which I, being a rather frank northerner, call purple. But you know what? I actually quite like it, both the colour and the car itself. Look, is this not sexy enough for you, not four enough? Well, there is a slightly more stylish, coupe-ish version coming later this year called the Q4 Sportback. But actually, I think this does the job really well. It's a handsome, good-looking family crossover.
Inside you get plenty of space for five, including excellent legroom and a big boot, 520 litres. It's practical, useful, the kind of thing that is absolutely everywhere because it does the job for loads of people. It's all very expected, all very Audi. Now you can identify the Q4's fully electric intention mainly because it has this solid grille, still with the big Audi hexagonal mouth and these very angular ducts on the front, with some pretty grumpy looking LED headlights. The sides get some chunky feature lines and there's a full width light bar at the back, which is pretty cool. But again, you're not looking at anything too revolutionary.
So there's going to be two versions, the 35 that comes with a 52 kilowatt hour battery and around 170 brake horsepower. I guess you should think of that like an old 1.8 litre petrol. It should give you an official range of 208 miles in the most efficient spec. Or you've got this one which is called the 40. This one has a 77 kilowatt hour battery, 204 brake horsepower and should manage up to 316 miles on the WLTP cycle. But do be wary of the spec, and not just because it can bump the price up. What I noticed while I was having a look at the ranges is that only the base sport model hits those claimed or official figures. A launch edition like this one only manages 305 miles of range officially, whilst the full bells and whistles Vorsprung spec car can only do 294. You can blame big range-sapping wheels and loads of heavy options for that. And of course, don't forget those figures are not what you're going to get in the real world. So to find out more about exactly how efficient the e-tron Q4 is, then do head over to electrifying.com where we have the full detailed review.
Now these first cars are all rear-wheel drive, but there will be a more powerful two-motor four-wheel drive version with 295 brake horsepower heading along our way shortly. It's called the Q4 50 e-tron Quattro, along with that slinkier Sportback version, which has slightly less practicality but even more range, thanks to its more aerodynamic shape.
For the moment though, we have this, the Q4 e-tron 40 launch edition. This has a price of just over £50,000 and comes with the 77 kilowatt hour battery. Now, even though it has some excellent standard bits like a lot of these launch or first edition cars, all Q4s do have one of the nicest interiors in the business. As standard on all cars, you get a 10.1 inch screen along with Audi's virtual cockpit. Now, I absolutely loved the virtual cockpit when I first saw it in the Audi TT, and I still think it is absolutely brilliant now. But what I do also really like is that there are proper buttons for the major controls. You also get voice activation that actually works.
As you'd expect, the interior is packed with excellent materials, and all models have a pretty comprehensive spec list, including lots of driver assistance and safety systems. Now, this car gets a twin leather interior, 20-inch alloys, matrix LED headlights that do funky projection things, a Sonos in-car audio system, which I have to say is pretty swish, but it also gets a couple of things that I find interesting.
One of which is this steering wheel with touch-sensitive controls, a flat top and a flat bottom. Now, this used to be called a Squircle or a Quartate and the Austin Allegro back in the day. Now that I remember that car, obviously. Now look, I know the Squircle is going to divide opinion, so do let us know what you think in the comments below. It might not be quite as wild as the new yoke steering wheel in the latest Tesla Model S, but it still takes a bit of getting used to.
Now, the other thing I want to mention is Audi's augmented reality head-up display with the Virtual Cockpit Plus. Now, I'm a sucker for a gadget, even if I do have to get my 11-year-old to explain how they work. Anyway, this system projects stuff like sat-nav directions, so they look like they're on the road in front of you. It keeps your eyes up and ahead, and it actually works really well. Now, Tommy is going to give you the full lowdown on all the latest Audi tech in another video, so make sure that you watch out for that.
But as lovely as it is in here with all the impressive gadgets, it does feel, sadly, a little bit cost conscious. Some of the plastics, quite a lot of the plastics, leave a bit to be desired. And look, runners that have been left uncovered. It's a bit disappointing. So, what is it like to drive? Actually, I do quite like it. Look, it's not the fastest Audi I've experienced, mainly because just over 200 brake horsepower in a 2-ton car is never going to set the world alight. But it's composed, it's quiet, you can thank the acoustic glazing for that. It's just a really easy car to get along with. Look, as I've said, it shares loads of its DNA with the Skoda Enyaq and the VW Audi Q4, but it drives completely differently to both of those cars. I think Audi is doing a brilliant job of making sure its electric cars still feel like an Audi. Loads of people thought that once we switch over to electric, all cars will start to feel the same, and that just isn't the case. So with the Q4 e-tron, you get exactly what you expect in an Audi SUV. It feels solid, it feels very composed. Now, both Skoda and VW have announced 4-wheel drive versions of their cars, but this is the first. And it does really benefit from that when it comes to handling, with the adaptive gadgets that move the power around, making cornering feel really stable. It even has something called variable dynamic weight distribution, and that helps it really go into corners in very steady, reassuring style. This car is a real joy on a stretchy bit of country road where it just doesn't feel like a hefty 2-ton beast. And you know what? Having spent some time in this car, I really like the Squircle. It's just a really nice shape. I've got really good visibility because of the flat top. Just feels right. Squircles are the way forward, folks, trust me.
There are all the usual drive modes to select from: comfort, auto, efficiency, individual or dynamic. And there's also a B mode on the gear selector, which boosts energy recuperation. And you can play around with the amount of regeneration you get using the paddles on the steering wheel.
Now, I've mainly used efficiency mode, and on that point, I've been pleasantly surprised at what I'm getting from the battery. On longer journeys involving motorways and faster A roads, I'm hitting 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour, but around town, around 3.8. It's a lot more impressive than the other e-tron. Told you, it just get a bit confusing. Anyway, it's actually pretty close to the efficiency we saw in the Skoda Enyaq, which I guess isn't that surprising, seeing as they share the same family line. So that's the efficiency sorted. What about the other modes? Can't massively tell the difference, if I'm being brutally honest. And you know what? You probably don't need to worry about them. After all, this is a family Audi and not the other e-tron in the Audi range.
The practical stuff is dealt with in efficient Audi standard, though it's not stunning. The 35 e-tron gets 100 kilowatt DC charging as standard. The 40 that we've got here gets slightly faster, 125 kilowatt. Now that means, according to Audi's figures, 5 to 80% in 38 minutes on a public rapid charger for both, and overnight on the home wall box. We're not exactly sure what overnight means, but based from what we know about similar cars, a 77 kilowatt-hour battery should take around 12 to 13 hours to go from flat to full. Same goes for the warranty on offer. Audi says the Q4 e-tron comes with a 3-year, 60,000-mile warranty, but that seems a bit light compared to some other manufacturers. The Kia e-Niro comes with a 7-year warranty, for example, so that's something to think about if you're keeping the car for a while.
So, should you buy one? Well, if this car is in your budget, and it certainly isn't the most affordable SUV around, then yes, this is a great family car. It's got brilliant gadgets and tech, it's spacious and practical, the hardware and the range is all pretty much sorted. Look, it's not by any means a game changer, but this is a brilliant and dependable offering from Audi that is going to appeal to a big cross-section of people for very good reason. So the big question, would you go for this or a high-spec VW ID.4 or a Skoda Enyaq? Who'd have thought we would ever have been posing that question, a Skoda or an Audi? And look, it's too soon to give you the answer today, but we will be doing another video very soon to assess exactly that. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel and switch those notifications on so you know when that one's landed.